They're not all touchscreen, but those ones in the middle are.
I get a Mac use
Nice catch there.
I knew you were going to do that.
That helps. Call this meeting to order. We will start with our Pledge of Allegiance.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to have a moment of silence for President Carter and those in California that all have lost their houses to fire, and to the firefighters out there. They're coming from all over the world to help fight the fire over there. So we all appreciate it. Corby, roll call.
Abbott.
Here.
Augenbaum.
Here.
Beers.
Here.
Dietz.
Here.
Gelfand.
Here.
Jackson. Here. Malika.
Here.
Whitaker. Sullivan.
Here.
Reesinger.
Here. Announcements. We had an executive session here before this, the joint board did. Mostly it had to do with contract, labor negotiation contracts. Okay? Positions openings. One of you guys gonna?
We're just briefly going to announce that we currently have 3 positions open between the township and the city. First of all, is Human Resources Administrator. I believe that posting is coming down in the coming days. Planning and Zoning Officer, that would be coming down at the end of the month, and Public Works Director slash Deputy Director. So we posted that under that title. The idea would be Public Works Director in Sandy Township, and then in the future, Deputy Director of the city. And that will be coming down in 9 days. There are, while I'm on a roll, there are still those vacancies on boards and commissions related to the city. We haven't finished the analysis on what all of those are, so we'll be doing that housekeeping item hopefully in the February meeting.
Yeah, and anybody who wants to volunteer for any of the committees, just let me know, or let Ben or Lisa know, and we will, once those become available, we'll tell you what the committees are and everything, and you get to choose what you want to be on them. Okay? Thank you. Go ahead.
And then the next and last thing on the opening, there was a notice that we published of leaving the Public Utility Commission regulations. So that caused some in the public to be concerned. I'll just explain briefly that the city does not need to be under the PUC regulations if it's serving its residents. However, the city also serves some Sandy Township residents. So currently, we have to register with the PUC and go through some regulations related to that. Since in 11 months, you're all going to be one city, there's no point for that excess paperwork, basically. So I would emphasize that no one is going to be not served. The quality is not going to change. We just don't have to fill out as much paperwork, basically. Is that fair?
Exactly.
Does the PUC still oversee the city water and sewer at all?
No.
If a citizen had a complaint against the city, they just go to the state, or
They go to you.
they go to me? Okay. Go ahead and call. I had a call today about a sewer line, or actually it was a stormwater line, yeah. I told him to contact Scott. Public comments on agenda items. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I see you got planning, zoning, and codes in here. I did submit, again, a request to redoing the ordinance code committee again, and I sent it to Ben, and I followed up with a phone call. I didn't know if you guys, and I know Dick was wanting to do it more sooner than later, and I'm not sure if you guys are still interested or have kicked it around at this point. I don't know what you're going to talk about under planning or zoning.
No, I was on the subcommittee for zoning and ordinances. We're pretty much done. I
You're
mean,
not going to,
when we were so far ahead and we're done, we're waiting for an attorney to write the ordinances, and we're waiting for somebody to draw the map for the zoning.
my understanding was you...
I mean, it still has to be approved here.
Right, but I thought you had to combine them. There were still ones, they gave a spreadsheet, and they had what Sandy had and what
They've been combined.
Du Bois, and then you looked at possibly, and I thought that was supposed to be a follow-up on the committee.
No, we, there was a couple of ordinances I looked at from what Sandy and Du Bois, read them both, came back with a suggestion on, this part's good in Sandy, this part's good in Du Bois, or, and we all talked about it, and it was pretty much, we're ready to go. I think, what do you think, Zach?
Yeah, it needs to go to the publisher. They would be able to clean it up,
Yes.
combine.
Yeah, and again, this board would have to approve everything, that it was just suggestions that we made, stuff, but I think we're good.
So you're not going to reiterate?
I see no reason to myself. Ben?
I haven't reviewed it, I'm sorry, I don't
Okay.
have an opinion yet.
Okay. Any other comments, public comments on agenda items? Okay, let's move on. Consent agenda, that would include the minutes, the township minutes, the city minutes, and the joint board minutes. Okay. Fiscal reports, that's the Sandy Township bills, the Du Bois City bills, the Penn Vest draw, and department, that will be separate. Are we going to just accept this as part of the consent?
You can do it all at once.
Okay, then we will look at the department reports, the manager report, information report, city police, public works, Sandy Public Works, city public works, planning, zoning, and codes, and the Sandy Police report. If you look at the agenda online, there is a spot where you can click on that link, and it'll take you to all those reports, and it'll take you to all those bills, and it'll take you everything almost everything we can see. Okay?
Chair, is now the time I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to reconsider the action of setting the elected official pay.
Can I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. Properly moved and seconded. Ben, can you explain what's happening here so everybody knows?
Sure. So at the last meeting, I asked if the elected officials' pay would include a cost of living adjustment or not. And it sounds like there are some members of the board that do not want there to be a cost of living adjustment. And so I believe what you've just said is you would like to make a motion to reconsider that. And so that's properly done as long as you voted in favor, which, as I recall, you did. And so it's appropriate for you to make that motion. And you can put that anywhere on the agenda. You could deal with that right now if it passes, or you could put it later in the agenda. So I believe your motion, your requested motion, is probably going to be something like merely to strike cost of living adjustment from the motion from the last meeting.
Yes.
So you should take a motion on, or vote on the,
Amendment.
We need to vote, we need to take a vote on to add the two of the agenda.
right.
Any questions on the motion? Vote on the motion.
You could probably just do a verbal vote.
Abbott.
Oh, sorry.
Are we doing this as a whole?
No.
Yes.
Augenbaugh.
Yes.
Beers.
Yes.
Dietz.
Yes.
Gelfen.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Malika.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Reesinger.
Yes.
So now you would make your.
So now I'd like to make the motion to amend the elected official pay to strike the COLA on it. And it would just be set as their pay, no cost of living
And we
increase.
can make that part of the
You can.
consent.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
Properly moved and second, we are going to add that to the consent agenda.
You may, yeah.
Okay?
You can do that.
All righty.
So you should vote on it now. I mean, you just added it, so you should vote on it now.
Properly moved and second, any questions on that motion? Vote on the motion.
Abbott,
Yes.
Augenbaugh.
Yes.
Spears.
Yes.
Dietz.
Yes.
Gelfen.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Malika.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Reesinger.
Yes. We'll continue with the consent items.
Yep. Under correspondence, we received the following. First was a letter from the U.S. Department of Transportation letting us know that our grant request was denied for the Reconnect Communities Program. I did speak with former management, and it sounds like it was a little bit of a Hail Mary, so we can't say that we're shocked, and it's not going to hold back any of our progress. Kick the Stigma letter is I'm sorry, I've actually forgotten which program that was.
I can speak to it.
Oh, very good.
Perfect, yeah, would you please?
Yeah, sure. I'm Aaron Beatty. I'm the executive director of the Western Pennsylvania Police Athletic League here in Du Bois, celebrating our 10th anniversary this year. We have asked the city of Du Bois to allow us to use the Memorial Park on May 17th this year for our third event. It is a mental health festival, day of wellness. We'll have a kickball tournament on the baseball fields. We'll also have resources and providers throughout the park, a bunch of different activities on the stage. Basically a gathering to encourage people to come out and talk about mental health, learn about the different providers and resources in the area, just to understand that mental health is something to talk about and it's not something to shy away from. So Kick the Stigma is exactly what it says in the name, kick the stigma around mental health. We use the kickball tournament as another reason just to kind of get people down there. So we're asking the city to support us and allow us to use the park once again this year.
Have you included the ball field in your request?
We did.
Okay, all right.
Spoke to Jim
You had to be a separate
about
request.
it. The Little League Park is going to be played as that's right in baseball season, which is obviously a great thing, but Hindlands are currently reserved. So hoping the date will work out perfectly.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we were awarded $20,000 from the Visit Clearfield, AKA the Recreation and Tourism Authority, and that was to promote the USCAA. We received a letter from the Office of Budget letting us know about a loan pay-up. The CDBG program, this has actually been talked about quite a bit in public hearings, but the funding that we asked to reallocate last month from CDBG towards the Cope Hill water line replacement was approved. And then we received notification that the Headwaters Resource Conservation and Development Council is dissolving voluntarily. Finally, on the correspondence that we wanted to bring before you, there's a protected document. This is from Acrisure. They are willing to do a study that will cost $4,000 related to our pension, and we need this information as we go into negotiations with I believe just the police, right?
This is for just police studies.
Right.
That'll be part of the consent agenda.
It's part of the, right, so we believe that we have the authorization to move forward with it. We're disclosing it, but the document was not made public because there is information in it that could be potentially used against the city for negotiations, which of course is a very clear and allowable right to know denial. So that's why that's the little lock symbol is against it. Last two quick things. There's, I believe at a previous agenda, the police brought forward a discussion point about the police patch. And that kind of led into a conversation about what the future city's logo is going to be and that sort of thing. And so without the benefit of having been at those previous meetings or part of those conversations, I guess we're asking at this point what you'd like to do. If you looked on your agendas or clicked on that, you'll see the draft that I believe the chief either did or had done. So feel free to take over, Chief.
Yeah, what you're seeing there is just something that the police officers looked at. We had some different ideas that we kicked around, and Officer Thompson from Du Bois City came up with the artwork on that one, so it's not really officially done. But we were looking at something like that, and that is the Du Bois, the original Du Bois family crest from John Du Bois. We omitted a couple things out of the family crest because we didn't want to, infringe on any copyright issues. So we left a couple items out. That's kind of what we came up with. We're not asking the whole citywide to accept that seal or that patch. Sandy Township has their own seal, and the police, we had our own separate police patch. They didn't coincide with one another.
Just
So we
want
weren't.
something everybody can use.
Yeah, because we're going to have to get the artwork done and
Are
patches
those
made.
expensive to get all the patches made?
They're like 35 each.
Here's what I'm thinking. There is going to be a point, and I'd like to recommend that we have a contest for a new city logo and a new city slogan. Let the schools do it. Give it to the schools and let them do that. And we would like the city to use that, we would like the fire department to use it, and the police department to use it. But if it doesn't cost a lot, you guys want to move ahead with that, knowing that, in the future, it may change. I mean, I don't know how you feel about that. Now's the time to speak up.
So once we get the patches made, the seal or the patch, we get stickers to put on the cars. So it would be.
It would be a big thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It would be.
So I guess the question, and this isn't something that needs a motion or anything, we're just kind of trying to feel the room.
Right.
What's the inclination on what you'd like to do? Approve something like this? Task us with going and just figuring it out? Would you like us to initiate that competition that you spoke of? What's the feeling of the board?
How do people feel about that?
Chris, if they did the competition, say in the next few months, would it still give you time to see if we can implement something like this with?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of police departments have separate patches than.
And if that's okay, I'm okay with that if that's what
Yeah.
the consensus is.
Yeah, even Du Bois City, their police patch is different than the city of Du Bois seal. So they do.
I'd be willing to do your artwork for free. We can do it, internet and patches and whatever you need, okay?
Okay, so provided, it sounds like when it comes to the police, we'll call it logo patch, you're okay with make it happen?
I'm fine either way, I just wanted a discussion.
Yeah.
I'd like to see the competition, like you said. I think that'd be good community.
But that's separate.
And you'd be
right?
amazed you would be amazed what they come up with. It's like
Oh, yeah.
phenomenal.
Separate from the police, or
Yeah,
go
separate from
ahead
the
with
police.
the
Let's
police?
keep the
Yep.
police
Okay.
go on their mission.
Yes.
I'm
And
okay
let's
with-
do the overall mission of this new community.
Do we want to keep it just within the school? I mean, we have some talented people in our
I
area.
put it out through the whole community.
Anything.
I'd put it out to the whole.
You could.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool with the kids. And they do they'll do a good job.
I
And I don't think we want a professional
Yeah, I
one.
think we
Yeah.
should do it out in public.
Yeah, anybody can.
Well, we can initiate something like that, then you can go do your thing on the police side.
That'll be- Can both of those be part of the concession? Or do we need to add
Concession?
the consent?
Oh, yeah, you don't need to vote on those things.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Last thing then on the consent agenda would be the proclamations. There's one, and that's for the Day of Hope, which is February 13th. It is a suicide awareness proclamation. And it highlights the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline.
Yeah, and I'll go to the middle school to read that, and I'll go to the high school and read that. They have some really great, they have a great group that is a peer group for kids that need help. I mean, it's a really wonderful, wonderful project.
So with that, I believe you would look for a motion to approve the consent agenda, which would be a minute,
All
everything
that
we just
stuff.
discussed.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved second. Any questions on any of those motions? Vote on a motion.
Abbott,
Yes.
Augenbaum,
Yes.
Beers.
Yes.
Dietz.
Yes.
Gelfen.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Malika.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Reesinger.
Yes. Pretty efficient. We have with us Tim from Janet Montgomery Scott. They're the sole underwriter for the city's bond. There's a lot of information. Feel free to, some of it's hard to discern, so feel free to ask questions. I know I have asked a lot of questions.
You'd like me to go through what I...
Sure, if you want to maybe stand here or there, whatever you feel comfortable doing.
I'll go over here.
But thanks for coming, I appreciate it. Come all the way out from Pittsburgh.
Well, I appreciate the invitation. Anytime anybody invites me to come talk about public finance, I'll come do it.
You're it.
So I'll come do it. So I'll try to keep this brief, but obviously I want to make sure that any questions you have are answered. And there's certainly way more information in here that we're really not going to go through. We'll hit all the key information, but I thought that this is a good summary of what we did. I think the last time I was before this body was late summer, when we were really just kicking this off, trying to figure out that we weren't going to do it, but when we were going to do it and what all the steps were going to be. So I'll go through all of that. We successfully sold the bonds on November 20th.
How long did it take you?
What's that?
How long did it take you to sell all those bonds?
Well, the actual bond sale process itself is done essentially in the morning. The
Is that an auction?
Not really an auction. It's kind of a formal across the country. We put out we put the sale light on to everybody. All of our salespeople actually start making active phone calls. There's a pre-marketing process that goes on probably a week before that, where all the salespeople are talking to potential investors, seeing what their interests are, seeing what interest rates they might be interested in buying the bonds. And that goes back and forth for about a week, and then we pick a particular day and say, all right, starting at 9:30 and then go until noon is the order period. So come now, or now's the time if you want to put in an order for bonds. So that formal period is 2.5 hours or so. But there's a lot that leads up to it, and some of that information's in here. So just starting with some of the documentation that you have here, the first thing I did include was the credit rating report from Standard & Poor's. They are the rating agency that rates the city. Again, this is just the city. The bonds are obligations technically of the city because that is the sole single entity as of today. The rating on the bonds, the rating of the city is A-. We were very satisfied with that credit rating, considering some of the difficulties that the city has overcome in the past couple of years, and where you are, that you haven't been in the public markets in a while. So you were kind of new to the process. So it's anything that we were able to get in the A category, I was very happy with. So when we came in with an A-.
But we bought an insurance policy also to kick it up.
We did.
To kick up our rating.
I will talk about that as well. A couple of things of interest. I encourage you all to read this. It's not necessarily a roadmap to how you need to govern or anything like that. And I always advise my clients not to necessarily simply do things that the rating agencies say, or if they see a weakness or a strength or what have you. However, it is a nice third-party professional opinion about the status of the city. How are your finances? What are the weak points? What are the strong points? So I do encourage you to kind of take a look at this and see what others are saying, so that as you decide about policies going forward, you can see how that might impact your credit rating, or what somebody from New York City who does this for a living might think about that and how it might impact you in the future. One of the things I think is interesting, I'll just point out here, and we kind of got this from the rating analyst who talked with us, is on page 4 of this, there's an upside scenario thing. Every one of these reports basically says, what can make your rating go higher? What can make your rating go lower? And in here, I think, importantly, what was communicated to us was, this is kind of a starting point rating for the city, and obviously they understand what the process is going on with the township. And they said, as long as that goes well and smoothly, and policies are implemented and followed, and you start to develop a track record of financial reporting being done on time, once the merger is complete and we have kind of a new entity, and as long as that continues to roll along, that will be viewed as a credit positive. So let's say we're back here and pick 3 or 4 years, and you're looking to borrow some more money for something. There's probably a better chance than not that if you all do this properly, that you'll be looking more of a credit upgrade potentially. That's nothing I can promise. But the one thing that's nice is that they did provide an outlook for you as well. Is in your rating, it's A-, but the credit rating outlook is stable. It could be positive, it could be negative, or it could be stable. So for you being where you are right now, because of course there's uncertainty from the rating agency's perspective about the merger and things like that, for them to go, yeah, we get what you're doing. That's good. We understand. Stable outlook is another positive thing to consider. So I think that's a nice thing to have. But as the mayor points out, one of the other things that we did, and I think we talked about this back in the summer, is as part of the bond issue, we also borrowed enough money to purchase a municipal bond insurance policy from Build America Mutual. And for the price of the policy, they step in and guarantee the city's payments over the life of the transaction. So if you ever didn't pay, somebody who owns your bonds knows that the bond insurer will pay. It's not like you're not going to pay. Of course you're going to pay. But if that didn't happen, the bond insurer pays, and because of that, that takes your credit rating on the offering from the A- up to AA. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 credit rating notches higher. So by being able to sell AA rated bonds, that's a higher credit rating, we're able to sell those for lower interest rates. And so long as we're able to sell them for interest rates that are low enough that it basically more than offsets the cost of the policy. So it's almost always a good idea to go and purchase that insurance, and we did that. Some of the other documents that are in here are just to kind of give you flavor for how we do things at Janney and what we do and how we end up finding these investors to buy your bonds. This was put out, this is called a sales point memorandum. This is something that Janney puts out to all of our salespeople, just giving highlights. There's a 80-page offering memorandum that's a big legal kind of prospectus, but this is kind of the highlights of that. So this is what our salespeople use to kind of get the key points that they use to talk to potential investors. We also then put together, right before the pricing, our municipal credit analyst, who's based in New York City. She puts together these things we call pre-pricing reports. So this is actually kind of Janney's internal version of the rating report from S&P. So we use this as well. We give this to all of our salespeople to arm them with information so that as they talk to investors across the country, they're kind of briefed on the key points of the city, your finances, your setup, as well as the type of transaction that we're doing. The next document I have for you here is our internal write-up that we did. We kind of call a case study. We put these together to outline for posterity, to outline in a future proposal that we decide we're going to do for somebody else to say, hey, we did this deal for Du Bois, and here's how it went. But I think it's good for you to take a read of it, just to give you a flavor for what we did, some of the hurdles we overcame. If you recall, we were ready to go into the market with this transaction in October and pulled it. As it turned out, you pick a day, basically a week ahead of time and say, all things look pretty good, as long as it's good, we'll go ahead and actually do the sale. We'll turn the light on and start that order period. Well, we were preparing to do that, and we got a series of economic data, PPI and CPI, inflation was going up, there was concerns about the election, everybody was getting a little jittery. And the day that we were going to do this transaction, here, turn the back of that page. If you look at this, this chart here. This chart here tracks the 10-year municipal rates across the country, index. And you can see that you look at this, these are the dates leading up to when we were going to sell your bonds in October. That was the spike. That was the day we were going to do it. And we said, this is the worst day in the market in like 2 months. We're not going to do it. So we backed off. Deals across the country backed off as well. There were billion-dollar deals like in Florida and California that also pulled from the market that day. No harm, no foul. I mean, everybody. This is why you hire us. This is our job, is to manage it, not get you in a position where we've got your bonds sold, all of a sudden interest rates spike a quarter point, and sorry, you got to pay more money. You didn't know you were going to do it in the morning, but you're going to do it now. So we backed off and said, let's just wait through. We've got presidential election coming, beginning of November. Right after that, the Fed was coming out again with announcements about whether they were going to cut rates or whatever. He said, let's get through that, see if the market settles back down. Well, there's the day of the election. That's the second spike we had. We were worried about that. So we got through that. Things began to settle down. Investors decided to get back into the market. There was money to be invested. We didn't see any more surprises on the horizon, and then heading right before Thanksgiving. We didn't want to get into the holidays or anything like that. So right before Thanksgiving, we got back into the market, and that's where we did it. And that allowed us to get the savings on the refinancing of the loans at a level that we had shown you back in the summertime. Got everything done. We didn't want to wait any longer because those loans pay monthly. And we didn't want to have another month go by where you had to make that payment at a higher rate rather than refinancing it at the lower rate. So we were kind of threading that needle. Do we wait and see if rates go lower? The savings is where we wanted it. Let's pull the trigger now. The sea seemed pretty calm, and that's what we did. So the next few pages, and I'll go through this in as much detail as you want or as little as you want. These are the financing schedules. Your finance department, your manager is going to need these for sure because they have the payment schedules on here. A couple things to point out for you, and certainly ask questions if you have any. But as you look through these numbers here, the overall transaction was just a shade under $14 million. That allowed you to refinance 3 existing bank loans, and it was about $11.6 million to refinance those bank loans. It also got you $2.5 million. We did that note issue to get you the $2.5 million to front you the money for the municipal building renovations, which is eventually going to be repaid by the proceeds of the RACP grant that you got from the Commonwealth. So the key point, I'll mention it before I'm finished about that. It's something that between you and us, we'll have to keep an eye on, make sure that we understand some timing issues here. Page 2 is just the prices of the bonds. This is your Series A. These are the bonds that we issued to refinance the notes. We matched the term of the old notes. We didn't stretch it out or anything like that. And we structured it so that we took our savings on an largely equal level annual basis each year over the life of the transaction. The next page, page 3, is your repayment schedule for the bonds, the Series A. Your first payment is May 1 of this year. And you'll get regular contact. You'll be regularly contacted by U.S. Bank. U.S. Bank is your paying agent. They will contact the city and say, payment's coming up. It'll all get done by wire and things like that, but they let you know. But this is the payment schedule that you'll have going forward. They will let you know both the payments on the bonds and the note They're two separate, essentially, they're two separate transactions for bookkeeping purposes. Page 4 is the repayment schedule of the note. It also has a first payment of May 1st, so you'll pay interest on that note. The key point I wanted to bring up here is with regards to the timing of this note. If you remember, we talked about this previously. The way that this note is set up is that the goal is that once your project is complete, the Commonwealth releases the money from the grant to you. Once that occurs, you need to use that grant money to repay this. You're really not supposed to sit around. I've consulted with your solicitor and with your bond counsel, Anthony Ditka, about, well, how long of a period do we have? Will we run into foul of anything? And to thread the needle in that regard, what we did is we worked with the prior manager with the idea of when's the earliest you're likely to get that money? And then when's the latest you're likely to get that money? So we determined that the latest you were likely to get that money back was May 1st of 2027. So that's the maturity date of this note. That's when it's got to get paid. It has to be paid by then. But what we also did is we put an optional redemption feature on this note, meaning you get that money earlier, you can pay it off earlier. And that redemption feature is May 1 of 2026. So beginning on May 1 of 26, from any day from then until May 1 of 27, if you've got that money, you can work with US Bank, you call us, you call Anthony, you call your solicitor, and say, we're ready to go ahead, we got the money, we can go ahead and terminate that. That way, you're not paying interest on this stuff. You want to get rid of it as early as you can. So once that money comes in, we terminate that. Can't do it earlier than May 1st of 26, but by May 1st of 27, we have to have it done. Then the last page, I think, is of interest to you, page 5. This is the final savings on the refinancing of your bank loans. On an annual basis, you see, we say the stub amount here in 2024 of almost 40 grand. It's nothing to sneeze at. And then it's basically $100,000 to $115,000 every year over the life of those loans. Now, keep in mind, it's a little bit hypothetical in terms of the savings level because those loans were not fixed rate over the life. They could change. So this was based upon the rates that the loans were at when we refinanced them. I think they were like 5.72 or something like that. Under those terms, they could go up to as high as 6 or 6.5. So it's possible that they could have gone higher. They could have gone lower. But the idea that we talked about back in the summertime was, let's just get rid of this variable rate idea. We don't ever have to worry about if rates go up or down again. The payments on your bond issues now are locked. It doesn't matter what rates do in the future. Your payments are your payments, and they will stay the same. But this is a number that I think you can use, that essentially you add those up over the life of your refinancing, $1.83 million of savings. So significant and certainly valuable. You've got another bank loan out there that didn't make sense to refinance, if you'll recall, but rates were too low, which is good. And you've got a couple of those Penvest obligations out there, and those rates are fantastic. So congratulations to you on those. The only last thing that I'll say, and I'll answer any questions, is one thing going forward that the city has not been involved with in a while because you haven't issued bonds since these rules became in place, is there are annual disclosure obligations to the municipal market through the MSRB, Municipal Securities, MSRB, like the SEC, rulemaking board. Anyway, on an annual basis, you're going to have to provide to this internet portal your annual audit and your annual budget. And then there's some things you'll see. There's a document in your official statement, in the offering document, called the Continuing Disclosure Agreement. There's a list of things that if they occur, you have to provide notice to this portal. You know, if your credit rating goes up or down, if you declare a municipal bankruptcy, certain things, if you miss a payment, if you default, certain things will have to be disclosed on a regular basis. We will help you with that. The thing I wanted to point out is, if the city wants to contact me and let me know who at the city going forward is likely to be the person that's going to do that, we have professionals in our organization that can actually help you get set up on the
Meet the
system.
deadlines and
Meet
make sure
the-
it's done right.
Get your login set up, show you how to do it, tell you when you have to do it, and we'll provide you ticklers saying, hey, this is coming up, don't forget about it. So just let me know, email me, let me know who that I don't know if it's going to be Ben or how we're going to do that. Just let me know. Nothing needs to get done until like the end of the summer. So it's not like time's ticking where you have to submit something, you don't. We just need to get that set up. We won't let that fall through the cracks, but that's the kind of the only overhanging item we wanted to make you aware of. Questions from
Any questions?
I just wanted to say, I think it's notable on here, the one paragraph, this was the city's first foray into the capital market in nearly 14 years.
That is true. And it went very well. That's what I was happy about. I think the process went smoothly. You never know how it goes, how it's accepted in the markets. I think we got good response from S&P. They seem to understand, I think, the presentations that were made by the city of its current situation, explaining the past situation very clearly, I think made a lot of difference. So I think that it went very smoothly, especially, again, you have things where, I mean, it's not every day we do a transaction where on the day of pricing, we're going to pull it out of the market. So we appreciate your patience and understanding that, because that sounds like it's a big deal, and it's not. It's not. Discretion's the better part of valor. These are the processes, we just go through them, and but we appreciate you sticking with us and being patient, because I think that we actually ended up doing it right at the end of the day.
Thank you.
If I looked at that graph, I know you guys were probably on pins and needles as the election came nearer and nearer and things started happening, and you see that spike. So, I'm not speaking for the whole board, but I'll speak for me. I appreciate you sitting, waiting, be patient to see what that outcome was going to be to get us that good rate.
We had a lot of internal conversations.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what it was. What it was, what's the adage about, you throw a frog in a pot of boiling water, it jumps right out, but if you just put a frog in like a regular, and then heat the water up, it'll eventually it'll boil itself because it won't jump out. For a few days before we pulled it, the market was just slowly creeping higher. And you're like, it's okay. It's not great, but it's okay. Do we do it? Because who knows what's going to happen. And then the day before it kind of got messy, and then the day of pricing, it was terrible, which helped make our decision. If it was just kind of another one, but because that day it was just awful, and rates spiked so severely that day, right? We jumped out of the pot. So it was probably helpful that the market got bad significantly in one day, and then we were able to pull it and keep our powder dry for the next time. Any other questions for me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What was the final average interest rate?
3.767.
Oh, okay. Good.
No.
Okay.
And that goes up to
these are-
2040.
You talked about termination dates. They're 10-year bonds, aren't they? Or is it 2026 or is all?
I'm glad you mentioned that. I'll tell you exactly. On the bonds themselves, which go out to 2040, the Series A, the optional redemption date on those is May 1st of 2033. So you can redeem those bonds if you choose to. Let's say rates get way low by then, we can refinance them again. There's a lockout period for a period of time for 8 years. But once we get to 2033 on those, we can refinance them, restructure them if we choose to. Nothing says you have to. And it's not on that, it's not just that date, it's starting that date and any day thereafter. And then, of course, those notes, final maturity 5/1/27, redemption, optional redemption date 5/1/26. Good. Questions?
I do. On when you decide whether you're going to refinance or not, or write the bond, what's the savings you're looking for?
But when we're going to it's like, kind of like what we did with the notes, with the loans.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, there's a lot of bond math that goes into this, but I'll explain it, because there's a number on here I can show you. Generally speaking, what we look at is we look at the present value of the savings generated on the transaction. Present value, not just the overall, because if it goes out 30 years, you save $1 million a year, that's 30 million. But in today's dollars, how much is that 30 million worth? Let's say it's 18 million, whatever, some lesser number. In the markets, the general consensus is if that present value savings number is 2% or higher of the amount of the transaction you're refinancing to generate those savings, then that's kind of a hurdle rate. Pull the trigger, go ahead and do it. The GFOA, a national organization, I believe that they set that their recommended limit at 3%. Pennsylvania, most likely, it's generally speaking, issuers will do it if you get to 2%.
And ours was what?
Yours, the present value of that $1.8 million is $1.35 million. So when you look at that, the percentage is, I don't have it with me, 12, 11?
I think you told me
12,
11. I think you told me 11.
I think it's 11%.
Yeah, 11 something.
Yeah, so it's like 11%. I'll send you that, I'll email to you. It's like 11%.
It just shows how bad our financing was and how much it made sense to do this.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say the financing, but yeah, how high it was compared to where you could reduce it. Correct. I won't say that it was a bad deal, a bad rate, or anything like that, but rates become stale at a time. You sign up for something at one point and you have terms, and those terms are okay for a while. And then if market conditions change, eventually those terms aren't as good anymore. And we're able to wring almost $2 million of savings for you out of it.
Just like people refinancing their houses.
That's all it is.
You get something and something else comes out better, you do it. So, kind of same thing here.
That's correct.
Any other questions for Tim? Thank you very much.
Thank you all. I appreciate the invitation. I'm glad to be out here. Safe travels.
And I'm sure if anybody has any questions on the board, you can always email Tim, he'll answer.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Move on to new business, organizational chart revision.
That'll be me. So, as an introductory comment to the new business section, you'll note on here there's a bunch of things that we're not asking you to take action on as a joint board because they are specific to the township or specific to the city. The reason for doing that is because there's been an increased desire of both boards to be aware of what the other boards are doing. And so what we did was combined everything from both your agendas onto one agenda. We can talk about it here, have all the discussion and deliberation that you might need to, and then break into your respective meetings and actually ratify those. So my expectation is that there will be nothing new on your agendas that wasn't brought before this board. And hopefully your meeting's like literally 5 minutes long, after the ones after this. So I'm going to get through, some of this will not take a lot of time, but if you don't mind, I'll just roll with the new business.
Yeah.
But the first one and the most time-consuming perhaps is item 1 here, organizational chart revision. So I want to preface this by saying that I hear you and the public and be sensitive to the fact that the point of consolidation, at least in part, was to reduce to reduce overhead costs. Now, I would qualify that and say that that doesn't mean you're going to see it immediately. Like, there's a lot of costs that go into consolidation, and so 2024, 5, 6, maybe even 7, you're probably not going to realize a lot of that because you're spending a lot more money on legal fees and management time and such as we bring these things together. Long term, I do anticipate you'll see those savings, and one of those will be and is related to the number of staff positions that you have, right? You can get economies of scale as you consolidate, and you can have more expertise. One of those examples is the HR position that we brought to you before, the idea being that it maybe wouldn't make sense to have an HR director for Sandy or for the city, but once you combine, it does, and so you can have one person who's dedicated to that and really understands their stuff. So back in 2022, the board passed an organizational chart as Exhibit B of the consolidation agreement. You're probably all familiar with it. There were some revisions that I was recommending. We weren't able to get everything done in time for the January 6th meeting, so we kind of kicked it to this. Besides, it's an important topic, so I thought it would bear being its own agenda item. What I've done is, first of all, written you a memo that highlights a couple of positions that we thought could be eliminated from the original list. So you'll see some savings in that. But I would highlight briefly that from what I understand, the origin of the 2022 version was taking all of the employees of both organizations and then trying to put them on this org chart. And sometimes it didn't maybe make sense because we were trying to hold everything harmless and not eliminate anyone's job. I think the idea was that if we could find an efficiency, it would be done through attrition. However, since then, so many positions have become vacant or vacated that there's an opportunity to change some things and see some of those efficiencies. And so there's a list in this memo to you that lists where I would think some positions would fit better, which positions I thought could be eliminated, and which positions I think should add. All told, I think you're still going to see a couple down from where you were in 2022, which I believe was down from even the city plus the township before that. So overall, you should still see savings, but I want to highlight this important point. Even though there are positions that are on this org chart that are they're less, we still want to see those positions actually filled. I guess, let me try again. This org chart may increase some efficiency, but it assumes that we can actually fill these positions. Right now, you are understaffed. And so when I hear people say, hey, the point of consolidation was to reduce costs, what are you doing creating a new position? My counter is, these positions were planned. We're simply following through on the plan, which overall should still be more efficient. But right now, our staff are struggling because of the vacant positions. And so, as hard as it may be, or as many job postings as you might see coming out from the city or the township, we need to fill these positions to eliminate the burnout that is happening right now with our staff. So this is a very important request for you. The draft reorganizational chart that I put before you would become, if you passed it, Exhibit B of the consolidation agreement, or the second version of the consolidation agreement. It does a couple of things. First of all, one important point is span of control. So with the old version, it seemed like there were positions that were reporting to other positions just because of maybe past history or something. By way of example, the IT director reports to the assistant manager, as does the code compliance person and somebody else that seemed completely random. And then you just had so many people reporting to the manager. And what we're trying to suggest is that we want to decrease the number of direct reports to about 5 to 7 people. That's a pretty standard span of control. You can manage 5 to 7 people. Once it's more than that, it's unwieldy. If it's less than that, then I start to think, well, does it really need to be a management position? And so in this organizational chart, you'll see that it could be viewed more as a pyramid. There should be 5 reports directly to the manager, 4 reports directly to the assistant manager, 5 reports directly to the public works director, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's change number 1, is we're trying to make this a little bit more of a pyramid so that it's not as unwieldy and hard to manage for upper management. The other thing to note is that we took some of the positions and rejiggered, I guess, what some departments would be. So in this model, there's essentially 4 major departments of W-2 employees. I'll set the fire department and such aside. The police department, public works, which would include roads, water, and sewer, not as separate entities, but as one, under one leadership. And then an administration department, so that would be your IT, finance, human resources, et cetera. and then a planning department. Sometimes those departments are called engineering, sometimes they're called planning, sometimes they're called codes. I don't really care what it's called, but planning, I thought, conveyed the forward-thinking development kind of focus that we want to have, not the deterrent codes we're going to, we're talking about violations kind of. We want to talk about forward-thinking growth, right? So I suggest perhaps planning. And that would be under a director who would then see codes, planning, zoning, the parks and events coordinator, and so forth. So those are the two big changes, is span of control and 4 departments, not a bunch of departments that are kind of randomly sized. So with that, I would ask if there are any questions of the board as to why I created it the way I did, and any questions?
Ben, some of these on here are for the future growth, correct?
Yes, so there are positions on there that today do not exist, but did in the past, or something similar. By way of example, I took the community development director and made it the planning director. So you'll see that there are name changes, but really the number of positions didn't, well, it went down actually.
Well, like where there's 2 canines, we don't have 2 canines.
Right, yeah.
We never had 2 canines.
Right.
So that's something that, I want the community to know that might be something, is that if it's feasible down the road, that it's in the new structure, the chart
Yeah,
structure.
you don't have to fill everything,
Yes.
that's true. But what this would do is, the point of bringing it to the Joint Consolidation Board is the Joint Consolidation Board is essentially agreeing that these positions exist, or could exist, or would exist. And so if at some point in the coming 12 months, we had an opportunity to fill a position, we wouldn't have to come back to the joint board and then go to the city or the township and ask to post the position or whatever. We're all agreeing that this is what the org structure ideally would be.
And looking at that org chart also promotes a succession plan, if you will.
Yes, it does.
For further growth in the future of the city.
That's very true. Yes, and one more added advantage I forgot to mention. We do compensation studies professionally, and one of the things that we would like to see is a structure whereby the titles kind of match up, so that there's tiers or bands. We call them strata. And there might be some overlap of somebody that maybe gets paid in a management level that does very specialized work but doesn't report to anybody, which is comparable to somebody that has a lot of responsibility with people, but maybe not a lot of legal liability or something. So we created this with the idea in mind that if you ever came to us and said, I want you to justify why this person makes this much, or for that matter, if staff comes to us and say, I expect to be paid twice as much or whatever, we could kind of point out why on the org chart you live in the strata that you do. So I hope that in the future it would really help with those conversations of, this is the pay that we expect. And it goes both ways, of course. If an employee can then prove that they have a lot of extra responsibility or legal liability that they manage or people that they manage, and they can point to somebody else within the organization and say, I'm more comparable to that position, then they also have evidence then to make the case that they should make more. Any other questions?
So are we setting this in stone right now? We're saying this is what it's going to be. I mean, maybe a couple months down the road, if we see something with a department, we're still able to tweak it if we need to.
Yep, yeah, just like anything in that consolidation agreement, it's, well, not anything, within the bounds of law, you can change it. And yes, that is something you can definitely change.
So when we go to hire somebody, the organizational chart will be our guiding force, and will you bring those names to us to plug into the chart for consent, or will you have the power to hire them?
Well, that's a very good question, and legal in nature. So normally in an optional charter council manager model, the manager would have the ability to make the hires. Weirdly, your city ordinance, the city's ordinances, which is the hiring entity in this case, has a specific provision that disallows that and says you have to take the hires to council. So I don't know why you would do that, because it kind of negates the whole point of the manager. But in this case, I think we would feel comfortable posting the position if you approve this model. But the ultimate hiring should probably still be brought back to city council, given their current ordinances. In the future city, my recommendation would be get rid of that clause. Because the whole point of it is to have the legislative body be you guys and the executive side be over here. And the inherent within the executive powers would be hiring and disciplining and firing and that sort of thing.
So my question for future discussion is, why wouldn't the joint board take control of everything that happens inside the city and the township, seeing how we're 11 months and 30 days from consolidation, 17 days?
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know how you remedy that, but I think we sit here as the governing body
Right.
for both. And that would eliminate extra meetings for the township and probably add one meeting for the city. So that, I'd kind of like to see that as an agenda item for discussion and see where it leads.
Okay. Generally speaking, if it's agreeable with this council, I would like to suggest that you go to essentially implementing the optional charter model now, whereby the manager would have the power to actually manage and not kind of have to come to Mother May I council once a month. So that would be my recommendation. I know sometimes that's odd. We've done interim management before in communities where, you know, they think you're this outsider that's going to come in and put a wrecking ball to the system. So I guess that would take a certain level of faith that you all would have to have in us to really be empowered to manage in that way, but I do recommend it.
You still have the obstacle of the ordinance to overcome.
You do, yes, that's why I was saying, and that's, I think, your point, right? I was saying that I would take any hires to council merely because the ordinance says to.
Correct.
Right. But ultimately, I think that this board, at this point, given your consolidation agreement, it does have the authority to say yea or nay.
Correct. Thank you.
Any other questions on the organizational chart? And I don't think this is a rush, by the way. If you wanted to postpone it to another meeting, that would be fine. But the reason to bring it up now would be to get it into the new version of the consolidation agreement before we get signatures and such that we passed on the 6th. So what I would be looking for would either be the motion to table or a motion to replace Exhibit B in the consolidation agreement with the organizational chart provided.
I'll make the motion to make this Exhibit B.
I'll second the motion.
Properly moved second. Any questions on the motion? Vote on the motion.
Abbott?
Yes.
Augenbaum?
Yes.
Spears?
No.
Dietz?
Yes.
Gelfand?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Malika?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Reesinger?
Yes. Library Board appointments.
The Du Bois Public Library Board of Trustees has requested that the city make 2 appointments in the Township 1. That would be Don Kurtz and Jane McGee. And then for Prudence Bickle for the Township. So you won't take action in this meeting. This is an FYI, and now you'll go actually officially vote on those in your respective meetings.
Okay. Authorization for unit clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In your packet, you received letters from both the SEIU 66 and from the ASME team. Several months ago, management approached the public works unions and asked them to consider one union to represent the streets and, the functions of what I call the public works. Those unions have declined to do that, and we have received letters from them asking us to continue to operate the new city with 2 unions. And so we consulted our attorneys to ask how does that work with vacation and breaks and all the sometimes different schedules, and what would that look like. And he told us that we have some options. And the options are to maintain that status quo and have 2 unions represented in the new city doing very similar and same jobs in some respects. Or we can petition the Pennsylvania Labor Relations Board for 1 union. Now, with that petition, the labor board will hear that petition, and they have some options themselves. They can hear that and make a decision, and what their process is, I'm not quite sure just yet. They can deny the petition, and we would do what they said and operate with the 2 unions. Or they would defer the decision until consolidation takes place and the new city is actually is the entity with the unions. And so we wanted to kind of weigh that really carefully, and we believe that it is worth going to the labor board and getting their opinion because of we believe that we could run into some issues with operating the 2 different unions doing some same and similar jobs with different agreements working together in the same ditch, so to speak. One might take a break a certain way, one might have a holiday on a different holiday. And so we just would like to bring those together. And so I'm asking this board to approve us to have our attorney go to the Pennsylvania Labor Relations Board and get their opinion on this.
Do you have a motion on that?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Properly moved second. Can we do a yes, no's here?
I'm sorry?
Can we do yeses and no's instead of a
Sure.
roll call?
Okay.
Yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Temp staffing.
In your packet is an agreement with Manpower Temp Staffing, and the reason that we're asking for that is some of what Ben already discussed. We are working on budget consolidation work, we're working on chart of account consolidation work, and we really need our finance team to be able to get a lot deeper in the weeds than what we've been able to do because of the workload. And so we are looking for someone to do AP for about 2 months while we get a lot deeper in the weeds on the finances. And I just felt like if we could shed that item off of Terry's plate, then she would be able to help us get a lot deeper into the finances and the work that we're doing with PEL and the consolidated finances. So I'm asking you to approve a staffing agreement. We'll start out with 2 months. We'll let you know how it's going and get back to you.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Properly moved second. Any questions on the motion?
Jim.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Pass.
Thank you.
Police chief agreement.
Police chief agreement is a request for this board to authorize the management to sign an agreement with the Sandy police chief to also make him the police chief for the city. This will also have to go before the city's board, of course. But in some ways it impacts, of course, the consolidated board, so we're asking for approval. There are some things that you might want to weigh in on. I have the draft agreement ready. I assume that the pay will be what was budgeted. And the term of agreement will only be through the end of this year. We have not found a way for this board to act on behalf of the future city, ironically, in an employment contract. So this will be through the end of the year. There is a residency requirement that's common. It's currently 25-mile radius from City Hall. Is that going to be a problem?
Police chief.
For the police? Yeah. So it's probably a moot point, but one area that you have flexibility on, termination and leave and all of that would just be based on current practice. Yeah, so it's really pretty straightforward. I know we've discussed in the past the idea of having the chief just going ahead and essentially trying to merge the two police departments. This is the first step in that direction. At the next meeting, we hope to have an update to the mutual aid agreement between the two entities. And that agreement would really start to solidify them working together more consistently. But for now, just putting them under the same leader, I think would be the next right move. So what we're asking for would be authorization for management to enter into an employment agreement on behalf of the city with the police chief.
I'll make that motion.
Second that.
Properly moved second. Any questions on the motion?
I just want to make sure that the city police are also okay with this, knowing that we have an interim chief that's been doing a great job, and
Yeah.
Dustin, but they're all on board, I presume, Chris?
I will speak for that, less you can put him in an awkward position. Yes, Sergeant McCleary has been requesting this.
I don't know.
Yeah, if anything, I think they want him more than he wants to take on the headache, right? So, no, we appreciate, they really work together already very well. We've been very pleased with the collaboration between not only leadership, but the guys on the street. So this is almost a formality. The other thing that this would allow us to do is have him go over to the MDJ and be sworn in as the police chief here, so you'd actually have arresting powers and whatnot here.
Any other questions on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Ayes have it.
Very good.
Lease agreement, Crown Castle amendment.
So you won't need to vote on this in this meeting. Again, this is one of those clerical things that would be kind of boring, particularly for the township, but there's a 2005 agreement that Crown Castle has with the city to lease tower space on a tower that they own. They're looking for an extension on that, so no big deal. While I'm on a roll, the next one on your agreement, it also goes to the city. This is Green Light Go. We took bids, accepted bids in December for Green Light Go grant. This would be for streets, intersection lights that are in both Sandy Township and the city. We had our committee review all of the bids, which we got some great bids. We got a bunch. We're very pleased with that. The committee recommended Trans Associates. Sandy Township actually already voted on it, and so we're off to the races on Sandy's side. But the cities, we need to get that on the agenda for tonight. So again, I threw it on this agenda. Any questions on that?
Is that a 90-10 grant?
I don't recall off the top of my head. I have all the bid information, but I don't have the grant information for me.
Okay.
So yeah, nothing to vote on there. Parking resolution, this is going to be before the city. The police department was not able to get this done for tonight's meeting. There will be a resolution therefore in the future. It's really simple. They want to flip a no parking or limited parking from one side of a block to another for safety. So,
Sure.
Solicitor agreement. So as you probably well remember, the city passed its agreement and appointed the solicitor at the last meeting. We appointed the solicitor at the last meeting for the joint board. We need an agreement updated with them, a different scope. So they were going to send me an engagement letter, and then at like 3 o'clock today, asked a bunch of clarifying questions, and so we're still negotiating that. So we'll bring it to you at a future board meeting. Next is a cyber liability re-up for Sandy Township. So again, it won't be voted on by this board, but we're just letting you know. The city already has their policy, and in the future, of course, it'll be merged. But for 1 year, we need to lock down Sandy's. Ramatika easement. This is also something that will be on Sandy's agenda, so there's no action to be taken here. This is a unique situation. We are requesting authorization to exercise eminent domain power, specifically for like 20 feet of a right-of-way to install a water line up by the Homewood Suites. And despite repeated requests for meetings, we have not been able to set a meeting with them or hear back. And so we have to kind of go the legal route of exercising eminent domain to, I guess, temporarily take those 20 feet or so of land and install the line, and then it'll be returned back to normal, no harm, no long-term harm done or anything. So it's kind of a formality, and it'll go before the township board and actually the municipal authority board. But I'll come to Sandy's meeting to explain that. And last, two quick items. The fire chief over in Sandy Township has asked for a $100 a month stipend for the assistant chief, like a gas card kind of thing. And then we will be asking Sandy Township, I guess we should ask this board. Sandy Township's Public Works Director has resigned. I know it's the tradition of both of your boards to get pre-authorization or actually make the hire in your public meetings. That's a pretty key position that we want to fill as quickly as we can. The posting, I believe, comes down in 8 or 9 more days. And so we would like to do interviews and make a selection and make a hire before the next meeting. Therefore, we are asking for pre-authorization from the joint board for us to make that hire. So that actually would be a motion. We are requesting pre-authorization to fill the Deputy Public Works Director position / Public Works Director.
I'm making that motion.
Second. Properly moved to second. Any questions on that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Very good, thank you.
Okay,
All done.
all done. Public comments on anything relevant to the city or the township? Figure what meeting I'm in right now. Yes.
I just wondered, when you're talking about the uniform, I guess the Public Works employees, has their union stewards been consulted? And has any of the union members been consulted as to what their feelings are? Once you go before a joint board, Labor Relations Board, they're gonna make that decision for you. And you're not gonna have any input in the decision that they make. You're gonna have to accept whatever their decision is. So I just asking that question.
My understanding is both unions would prefer to work together, but it's the union itself that doesn't want to give up its membership.
Couldn't those union members vote for which one they wanted to belong to, rather than have the labor
Apparently
board
not.
making that decision?
You would think so.
You would think so, but we're told, no, that's not the way it works.
You're told that by legal counsel?
Yes.
Or-
And the unions.
Any other comments? Yeah.
Debbie Meckling, Monroe Street. At the December 23rd meeting, your group proposed to the audience to think about what goals that we would like to see happen with the consolidated city. And it made me wonder about our city's economic future. And on July 8th, at the Du Bois Council meeting, it was discussed to advertise for an assistant manager / economic development coordinator. At that time, it was approved by council, but needed to be addressed at the July 17th Consolidation Board. At the July 17th board meeting, the motion was made by Ms. Jackson and seconded by Mr. Beers to advertise for that position. The motion did pass 7-2. So what is being done to bring good paying jobs with benefits to our area? We need to keep our city viable and be actively and aggressively promoting our town to attract new businesses. Our children are leaving our area to pursue careers in other cities. This is a sad fact. With the current restructuring, what is the status of that position?
Ben, you want to address that?
Within the, well, first of all, I would remind you and highlight that at the last meeting when we asked about the joint priorities, one of the key priorities was doing an economic development plan, as well as recreation, blight remediation, that kind of thing. And so, to some extent, I think that there will be a plan that informs how that works. But then, more specifically on like where does that position go within the org chart that we just passed? And the answer is that before, on the org chart, it had a couple of positions that could play into that. One was the Community and Economic Development Director, which effectively became the Planning Director. And the other position is the Assistant Manager, as mentioned, and that didn't go away either. Right now, I'm kind of, I guess, temporarily filling that role. Unfortunately, Consolidation could be a full-time job. Just as manager could be a full-time job. We had bid expecting that each of us would spend about 30 hours a week on this, and collectively our team is spending 80 to 90 hours a week on this. So we're to some extent losing our shirt, but happy to do it because it's a missional project that we're very happy to be doing. So I'm not making an excuse about doing economic development, but I have not had time to spend on what we would call pure economic development. We have made some progress in meeting with the local stakeholders, and I do want to highlight that we're going to do that economic and community development ecosystem map, where we will identify the 47 things that we see in thriving communities, and we're going to find who's kind of responsible for doing that, or noting that there's a gap there, and then we'll bring it back to this board and say, you know, what do you want to do with the fact that, you know, maybe workforce development is not, or there's no industrial roundtables here, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the things that we are going to be doing related to economic development. It's just the day-to-day fires have prevented us from doing a lot related to it. As we fill these positions, like planning and zoning position, the HR position, public works, we hope to be freed up to do some of the more high-level, bigger picture stuff and not manage as much day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, we held several interviews, and there wasn't really anybody, everybody was either economic development or finance. We couldn't find somebody that had experience in both of them. And so we kind of re-looked at that job. For me, there's nothing more important than economic development. We have, in a township, we have 300 acres. In a city, we have 300 acres that need developed. They're just prime, both of them great locations. We need to do that, okay? But we were I think we held, yeah, there's 7. Yeah,
I remember that, 7.
I can't remember exactly how many. but
7 resumes or something like that.
Yeah, and we interviewed 3 or 4 people, and we just couldn't find somebody that had both those skills.
I was just curious.
It's going to probably end up being 2 people. At some point, it's going to be, we need 2 people, and we just aren't there yet. And I sure wish we were.
And I understand, everybody's overwhelmed right now.
Might be an understatement. Every week, it's like, they did what?
What's wrong, you okay back there?
Any other public comments? Yes, sir.
Yeah, real fast. Pat, you had mentioned on the planning and zoning that you had already consolidated that, and I have a draft copy. I see your emails on here. If I email you, can you send me that draft copy and see what?
I don't have that.
Oh, I thought, did I misunderstand you?
I have the layout of what we wanted to combine with all the notes and everything that I believe went in with the draft, with the
Yeah, we're
consolidation agreement.
really to the point where we have, like I said, we are just a subcommittee. We don't have any authority to do anything. It has to come to this board before anything. So I don't know if that's ready to do that with yet.
Well, my understanding when I was working with Sean, and then COLA was also on.
Ben was, Ben
Yeah,
led the
and I talked to
committee.
him and I talked to some of the.
Or, I'm sorry, Dan, that's right.
Yes,
Dan,
Dan.
Brother Dan.
So, I was given everything that they put together, they had great spreadsheets, and they said, Sandy's ordinance or code is this, and Du Bois is this, there's a little difference. This one's completely the same. And they had this nice spreadsheet. I was understanding you had, when I asked you that question, I thought they were gonna go and line them all up and then say, here is all the ordinance and codes, this is the ones we will combine or utilize, and then it goes to the board. Of course, it goes to the board for a vote.
We just,
So
right
that's
now,
what
we
the
just
committee
have,
was
we really
supposed to
just
do.
have a bunch of notes with each ordinance, correct?
Yes, what we
Yeah.
would like
So
to
it's
see,
like
what we want
combining
out,
done.
and then.
There's no, it's not ready. Like I say, it has to be approved here before we could even do that, before we put that out to the public.
But you didn't even look to see, I thought that was the next step in the committee in talking to folks that had been on the committee, was to make that recommendation. They just did a listing,
Yeah,
and then they were gonna make the recommendation, the committee, not vote on it.
And then,
And then you guys would vote on it, and that was a step I kept talking to Sean about, when are you gonna do this? And they keep saying, the future was 2026, and blah, 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 but 2026 is around the corner, it's gonna happen sooner than later.
Sure.
So I'm a little confused, maybe we need a one-on-one conversation.
Sure.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Board comments?
Oh, yeah, board comments. Whoa. Elliot?
None for me.
Jen?
No.
Barry? No. Oh, that's two meetings in a row.
I cooked down. Nothing, Pat.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
Nothing tonight.
Keep her rolling. No?
Myself either, that's quite a meeting. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
You've got it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
We could ask for that one.
You have to.
This one, I think, congratulations. Sit right here and do it. Just, you want to, you don't go through one scene.